I think you're going to see a lot more technologies. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more computer equipment to do some of these specialty repairs.
Self-driving cars.
I think you're going to see more of those.
Hey everyone, it's Jeff at Opus IVS. Today we're with Shane. He is an area vice president here in the Southeast at a collision center, and we're going to talk to Shane about why collision is hard. So what digital tools have you implemented in the last 5 years? Just at this facility, or maybe across all of your facilities?
I mean, at this facility, we've definitely, in all of our facilities, we try to set them up pretty much the same way. Obviously we've improved, whether it be our scan tools. I mean, 5 years ago, it might have been coming onto the market a little bit, but it was, your scan tools then was to go to AutoZone, buy a little scan tool so I can clear the check engine light off the car.
Yeah, I got one of those. $39.99, right?
Yep. So, so obviously that has changed a whole lot.
What about paint? What have you seen change in paint? Anything?
With our paint, the color matching differences. We've had to rely on a lot of equipment that you didn't have to before. Back whenever I first started painting, you would mix up a color, you would do a spray out or take your stick and hold it up, with the car.
Yeah.
Now you've got all of your waterborne products and everything to where, you pull out the stick. We used to use a paint brand that's different than what we have here at a place that I work from, but it was a waterborne paint, my first experience with waterborne. And I don't care what color it was, whenever you pulled the stick out, it almost looked blue. It had a blue tint, and you had to actually, the only way you could match it was you had to spray it, do a test pan on everything. Well, the thing that's made that easier is to take some of that hand tinting out. Is obviously we have cameras now that you can scan it, and it's not always 100% perfect, but it definitely gets you, and it'll even tell you whenever you scan it, this is a 97% match, or this is,
Nothing's ever 100. You ever seen 100? I don't know. I don't know nothing about paint.
I don't think anybody's ever going to tell you anything's 100%.
Yeah.
But it's just, those are the things that, tools that we're having to rely on, because most painters now, if you told them they had to go tint something by hand, not to say there's anything wrong, but it was a different time back then.
Sure.
Different products.
I seen the little gun that they have that they shine. I guess it replicates the sun.
Yeah, we have sunlights now that you
walk
walk around.
I want one of those just to have it, but yeah, they'll shine it on the stick, and then they compare it to the car, and they go side to side and all that stuff. So you guys use one of those here?
We do.
Yeah.
Just the differences between the way it looks under fluorescent lights to the way it looks outside.
Sure. And outside's what matters, right? Not under the lights, say, in here.
You want it to look good both, but definitely outside, because, most people's cars are going to live the majority of its life outside. But, whether it's, even the tools we use are so different now. I mean, everything, whenever I first got into this business, were air tools. You used,
Oh, it's all cordless now.
And now so many things are going to cordless, my buffer quit last week. I was helping out a friend at the house, and my buffer that I've had probably 12 years, it quit on me the other day, and I went to go look at a new one. And yes, you can still buy the old plug into a cord, but everything now is just about all cordless, with lithium-ion batteries, and, it's everything that we use. Impact guns now, all that's all cordless now. It's not the old days of you had to drag your air hose over, plug it in.
I want to say that started back in probably 2010. I want to say that started back in 2010 on the mechanical end of things, right? We started seeing cordless impacts from different tool manufacturers, and they were pretty rough at first. They didn't last very long.
Oh yeah, they didn't last long.
Batteries were trash.
And depending on how much power the battery had, which it didn't tell you how much power it had, depending on how tight it actually would make something, or
the less baps you got when you're hitting the nut. No, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But all that's just improved so much. It's just, all those things are just making this job more efficient and easier on the technicians doing the work.
Frame machines. I've seen some crazy frame machines out there. I seen one that had these apparatuses hanging from the bottom of it, or maybe it was just one, and it spun and it calculated the distance between the bolts and everything. I thought that was, and it had several drawers you pulled out with all these different adapters, right, that went under the frame of the car. I thought that was super cool. So do you guys have anything like that here?
We do. We use a Chief frame machine here.
I think it was cheap that I seen.
Which it has the targets, like you said, you hang the targets down, and it's got the sensor underneath, and it actually goes through and it reads the different measuring points.
Right.
You know, and that, which is that's been around more than the last 5 years. But I mean, I know whenever I first got into this, you know, your frame machine was a tram gauge and tape measures. You know, you just measured it, and then, you know, and then, as much as I hate to admit it, but it's the way that it was whenever I first got into this was, you know, the way that you would finally check it was not with measuring anything. It was whenever you put your parts up there and everything lined up right. You know, you put your parts and pull till you get this gap just right. And you know, it was just a different world, you know, and I'm glad that we have progressed in the way that we have, but it's also so much more important now than it used to be.
What about welding? I mean, I seen a welder, I want to say it was a chief welder, and it had, I want to say, like, you know, it had steel, bronze, aluminum, like it was capable of doing all these different welds in one machine.
Yep, and that's what we use here because we have so many cars now, whether it be, you know, your Fords or that are almost all aluminum or whatever. You know, you just got to have those additional equipment because the materials that these vehicles are being made out of are completely different now. You know, just like we were talking about the measuring system, it's so much more important because cars now have crumple zones and different things that they didn't have back then. And if you don't have the proper equipment to measure it to see, you know, I mean, if it's off, it could be off so much that you can't see it. But it's one of those things that, or it could be in a crumple zone in a place you can't see. So without doing that measuring, you just truly don't know. And then you run the risk of putting somebody in something that's not safe.
Yeah, I seen one at a shop back home. It was a newer X5, like M5 competition SUV thing. It had a carbon fiber roof on it, and that roof had to be replaced. Something had happened to upper B pillar area. Something happened to the vehicle. That roof was glued to the body of the vehicle because obviously we can't weld carbon fiber to steel or aluminum. But it just blew my mind that there was a special urethane, and you know, to put that in there and then put the roof panel on, that just blew my mind.
Yes, most of your roofs now, I mean, some are welded in, some are welded and glued, some are just glued. It just depends on the construction. It depends on, I mean, a Ford truck, for example, the truck bed on those are riveted and glued on. You know, it's aluminum. There is no, it's all rivets and glue. It's over 100 rivets that hold that bedside on.
That's crazy.
So we've had
you can't get the whole bed, right? You got to repair it in sections.
I mean, and you can get a whole bed, but it's just, you know, but that's not cost efficient to do so. So you replace those panels. But, you know, it's just amazing how much that all that, you know, you have to have self-piercing rivet guns now for doing those types of repairs. You know, and a lot of it's been around for years and wasn't utilized the way that it should. But whether it be your GMs now, they don't have radiator caps on most of those. You've got to have the vacuum fill systems whenever you're filling them up, which we use that for everything now because it eliminates you remember the old school way was you put water in it, let it get warm, let it burp, and then, you know, cut it back off, fill it back up, you know, and
so what we used to do at Porsche in the 911s on the rear engine cars, even the mid-engine cars, we would raise just the back of them up, right? So any air in the front radiators would go up the pipe, the cooling pipes underneath to the back. And of course we would vacuum bleed them, and then we'd pull that off. And we had a deal where, you know, we'd fill it up and then run the car at 4,000 RPM until we got that burp. And then you knew the car was bled and we'd put everything back together. But it's another story, but yeah.
I mean, and even the materials we use on the old equipment, like with our welders, we're a Honda certified shop here. So we do a lot of Honda certified repairs. If you're welding on high strength steel, Honda has a certain wire that, and I think there's 3 different manufacturers that make it, but you have to have that specific wire to weld anything in, you know, on that repair. I can tell you that roll of wire is very pricey. I mean, it's a few $100s for that roll of wire. But, you know, if you don't have the right equipment, you know, I can run it through a regular welder, but it's just one of those things, knowing which wires to use. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, I didn't have to use any wire. I just had some regular, you know, 030 and I'm going to weld it.
Right. Mid wire or something.
Yeah. In fact, it was funny because I had that roll of wire on my desk one day, and one of the guys needed some wire, and one of their welders, and I got to looking for it and couldn't figure out where it was. Well, they didn't know, had grabbed that roll of wire and were fixing to go to welding with it. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, can't use that. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
don't use that.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have told me 10 years ago I was going to have to use special wire for this, or I was going to have, some of that things. But
yeah,
times are changed, and the equipment is going to keep evolving. We're going to keep having to buy equipment that, continues to grow with the times.
Right.
Your electric vehicles that, 5 years ago, they were just kind of getting started.
Yeah.
I've got a set of lineman gloves in there, just like, somebody uses to work for the power company.
Yeah.
You couldn't have told me whenever I first got into this business, I was going to need some lineman gloves to work on a car.
Yeah.
But, it's all things that we're having to continue to get those things.
Right. Right. I know with Honda, if you got any structural damage, they're big on resetting steering angle sensors, seat weights, making sure the car is calibrated, using HDS for pre-scans, post-scans, all that stuff. So, yeah, Honda's got a lot of requirements, I know, with their certification. But, I mean, I personally, I like Hondas a lot. I think they're one of the best cars on the road, in my opinion.
And we do a lot of them here. And, they definitely... They're easy to work on as far as they don't, not to say anything wrong. I know you come from an Audi background.
Yeah, you didn't need triple squares and Allen bits and all that stuff. Yeah,
look, I have a set of sockets at the house right now that I have used one time in my entire life, and it was because I restored a Porsche 912 for a guy, and you had to have the 12-point.
Yeah, that's normal.
Torx bits.
That's a German Phillips screw, man.
Well, me working on mostly American cars,
yeah.
I didn't have this, I bought it, I got that car done, and I don't think I've ever used them since.
I think I got 4 sets of them at home, and they're all wore out. I'll send you pictures of them. They got miles on them, miles of turning bolts. Yeah. So what do you think the future of collision looks like? Where do you see the shops in 10 years from now? New technologies?
I think you're going to see a lot more technologies. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more computer equipment to do some of these specialty repairs.
Self-driving cars?
I think
closer.
I think you're going to see more of those. It's starting now more and more. I know your Teslas, they make the self-driving cars. You've got, like I said, Chevy's got the new system now where
Ford's got it.
So we're just seeing more and more of that technology, and the more that we see that technology, the more equipment we're going to have on our end. Either we're going to have to outsource more to have those things done, or we're going to have to, increase our equipment and different things to do it. We are very lucky because of like Opus or different ones that are, you guys are doing a great job at staying ahead of some of that technology where we're able to continue to do some of that extra things with what we've got. But I do think as all that continues to grow, I think there's going to be additional equipment that's going to end up having to be had to keep up with it.
Yeah, I know we're always trying to stay one step ahead of it. It's forever changing. It almost seems like what might have changed every new model. And that, I can think back on some of the Audis. It's like every 6 months something was changing on the car, something was getting added or deleted, moved around.
Well, it's getting to a point where they're adding so much stuff. It's kind of like whenever you buy a computer. I mean, because the car's got how many computers and sensors and everything on it
50, 60 modules. It all depends. Yeah.
And I always used to joke, anytime I bought a laptop, I always made sure to buy the greatest thing that they had out right then, because next week it's going to be outdated.
Right.
And unfortunately, these cars are the same way. You buy the greatest thing right now, and next week or next month, they're going to come out with something that is going to trump that.
Yep.
I know. And I think it's become a competition to see just what we can put on one. But, at the same time, a lot of it is to increase safety in the vehicle. And it's just our job to do whatever it takes to get with the right people so that we can stay ahead of that technology, so that we can put them back in the vehicle and it be as safe whenever it leaves as it was whenever it came to us.
Based on what you've told me, the way that you're treating your technicians are staying here working with you throughout your facilities. I'm sure you guys will be staying up on top of whatever is needed, right, to keep that customer coming back, keeping them happy.
We definitely try.
Ultimately being profitable.
We are definitely trying. You know, I won't ever claim that you make every customer happy, but we're going to do our best to try to make them happy anyway. So, you know, that's the end of the game. I mean, it's one of those things. I've always felt like it's a simple concept what we do. A car comes in broken, we fix car, we send car home with a happy customer. I mean, that's the whole concept. And,
right.
And the key is getting workflow, whether it be using equipment, whether it be using vendors or whatever, to get that flow to where you can not only get that car that's broken, fix it and send it back home, but to do it in the fastest manner possible.
Right.
You know, this shop to me is a perfect example of that. It's not a big facility. We move a lot of cars to this shop, and the only way to do that is that flow.
Right.
I can't do it if I've got 4 cars sitting out here waiting for something to be done to them. You know, it's got to be that constant flow. The old mentality in the body business was, oh, I need to get as many cars on site as I can, because as long as I've got these cars on site, that's the more work, you know, we've got in the shop.
Sure.
That's the wrong mentality.
Right.
The right mentality is, if I've got 4 cars, if I have 4 cars coming in here today, that means I need 4 cars to be leaving here today. It's keeping that rotation. That's what keeps customers out of rentals longer. That's what gets them back into their car. It makes your insurance partners happier. It makes your customer happier. It's not, well, your car's going to sit back here and we might get to it next month. But, you know, I mean, yes, that's job security as far as having that work. But I'd rather have that job security of, man, they did a good job. My car got back to me faster. I want to take the next time something like this happens back to them.
And the higher your scorecard stays with the insurance companies, the more cars they're going to send you guys.
Correct. And so that's the, you know, we've got to break the culture of, oh, as long as I've got 50 cars sitting here, I've got plenty of work. No, I'd much rather have 20 cars here and know that 5 come in today, 5 go home today. And tomorrow, 5 come in that day, 5 go home that day.
Right, right.
That is the key to just making people happy and keeping your and the happier your insurance are, like you said, the more referrals you're going to get for them, the more you're going to have that better working relationship with them, the more things are just going to be better all the way around.
Right. All right, everybody, that's going to sum up today's interview with Shane. I hope you guys all found this informative. If you got any questions, come see us at opusivs.com.